I will show you how I added Firebase Google login directly into Swagger UI, as you can see over here. And first the vanilla solution, and in the last part of the video I'll show you how I solved it in my NestJS server. So how did I get from this to this? You're looking here into the usual HTML for standalone Swagger configuration. Only thing that you need to change is the location for your API JSON specification, but this does not solve the authentication. That's why I made use of the Swagger UI request interceptor, where I inject it with the ID token that I save in the global object. And I inject it into the authorization header. ID token, I get that from Firebase after I logged in with Google. These are the libraries that I need to initialize my Google login. You need a web configuration for initializing Firebase config, only the API key out domain project ID. You can get that from Firebase Google console, project settings, scroll down to the web configuration part and copy the keys that you need. Back to code. Part that is responsible for authentication is this part. I also need to eject the HTML that you saw at the top of the page. And after I'm signed in, I show the signed in as that email. The injection part into the global object is actually here. So the OAuth state changed is the hook by Firebase that always triggers. It doesn't matter if user is logged in or not. If it is logged in, I inject the ID token into global object. Otherwise, I set it to null and I show either logged in button or login button. And this pretty much covers the vanilla Swagger. It will work for any kind of server because only thing that you need from the server is actually the Open API specification. When I am not logged in, signing with Google shows up whenever I try to hit my URL that requests authorization. I get an unauthorized exception, but when I'm signed in to Firebase, it should be a completely different response because the authorization header is injected. And now the NestJS part. So I'm using the NestJS Swagger setup. You need to install the library and I initialize the Swagger in the main module. This is the default getting started guide, but what is different from getting started guide, I take use of the custom.js and custom.js string properties where I inject the Firebase for web libraries that I need and do the same thing. So, as I said, Firebase configuration, this is coming from the web configuration part that you can find in Firebase console. App is initialized and I need the Firebase authentication module and provider because I will log in with Google. To log in with Google, I need buttons. Firebase has a hook that's called OAuth state changed and it always triggers. If I'm not logged in, the injected ID token from the global object will not be defined. Otherwise, I will request from Firebase to issue me a new JWT token, which I'll inject into ID token. And this is a bit different from the vanilla Swagger HTML. In the vanilla Swagger HTML, I could call the request interceptor when the Swagger UI was initializing. I cannot do that with the NestJS Swagger because I don't see an interface to do that. It is already initialized at this point. So instead of attaching the interceptor on initialization, I will attach it after the Swagger UI is initialized. To do that, I can modify the UI fetch method and I do the same thing. So I fetch the window ID token. If it is defined, I inject an authorization header with bearer. And other than that, the code is pretty much the same. And how it looks in the NestJS Swagger, same thing. I'm signed in and I can call this root. And the request passed the authorization middleware that I have in my NestJS server. All of the code that I've shown you in the video is available at GitHub. Link is in the description. And thank you for watching this video.